we're kind of perplexed. Why do we let people antagonize us? Why do we let people throw us off stride so many times? At the heart of it, it's really about when we decide to give up our own center, our own, let's call it leadership power, and let other people determine our behavior. Hi, I'm Lynn Moran. I'm an executive and leadership coach and a business advisor. I spent my whole career working with leaders and learning to become a leader myself and figuring out how do we stay at our best most of the time, and how do we make sure that we drive our behavior and we don't let others throw us off stride. That's my work. That's going to be our conversation, and I'm really enthusiastic about engaging in the leadership journey with you.
All right, great. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out. This is going to be a really great group here today. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. Good to be here. Want to go live?
Yeah, we're live. We are live.
We are live.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Moran, and I have retired twice. All right, so they say three's a charm, but I'm not retiring yet. I actually spent most of my career in corporate, working with leaders and becoming a leader myself. I spent 26 years with Mars Incorporated, selling candy, making candy. So before I retired, I ran a company in Las Vegas called Ethel M Chocolates. Ethel M stands for Ethel Mars. And the other brand that we ran was M&M's World. So you learn a lot when you start to run a company. You come in and you say, I'm going to say all these really great, wondrous things, and everybody's going to go, wow. And usually they look at you and go, what? So what we learn as we go into our leadership is what we say and what people receive is often very different. And that's where we start to get into conflict. So after that big chunk of my career, I then went and worked for a gift company who sold plush animals, teddy bears, what they call tabletop. And then I decided, I think I'm going to go on the journey and figure out what keeps really bright, talented people from achieving their greatest potential. And I believe at the end of the day, it's us. It's the individual. And it's figuring out what do we do really well, and then what is it that we need to do better. So that's kind of a broad topic. So today, once again, we're going to narrow it in and talk about this really uncomfortable topic, conflict. And conflict is really not about you or me. It's about an exchange among all of us. And it's perceptions. So what really happens is we come into the world with a filter, right? It's not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. You see the world a certain way. I see the world a certain way. And that's okay. But in those differences, we start to grind on each other. We start to say, I'm not so sure that person really respects where I am. And the other person is kind of going along oblivious to any kind of, let's say, unintentional violation of a value or a hit against somebody that they're like, what? I didn't say that. I didn't do that, because it wasn't intended. So really what happens with conflict, a lot of people think it's a fight. I don't. I think it's subtle. I think it starts to erode performance. That's why when we always talk about high-performing teams, everybody's like, we want to get to optimal performance. We want to get to high performance. But how do we get there if we don't even realize that we're eroding relationships through unintentional conflict? Right? And sometimes people say to me, I love conflict. And I'm like, really? Because most people don't. When people take conflict assessments, you know what most people do? They avoid. Because at the end of the day, they really don't want to lose the relationship. They really don't want to lose the camaraderie. So what do we give up? We give up a piece of ourselves. But when we give up a piece of ourselves, we don't like it. We begin to resent it. And that's when we start to act out. Because at the end of the day, we're just human, right? We're just people. sometimes people are like, I want to be this kind of person. I'm like, well, so do I. But we are who we are. So the real opportunity around conflict is to recognize it, figure out what we're feeling, and then how we stay kind of in control and don't let people throw us off stride, right? Conflict not only disrupts businesses, but it can actually damage a relationship and destroy teams and businesses. So how many times do you hear like, well, they're no longer in business, or well, that partnership broke up, or well, that team's just kind of imploding? I would predict it's unresolved conflict. All right? So let's go through, if we could, Ben,
Sure, absolutely.
and say, we know where conflict can look and feel like. Let's go to reflections, if we could. Let's go to the next slide.
There you go.
All right? Thanks. These are the kind of things I want you to think about when you're facing conflict. Is it really your issue? Is it really your problem? So sometimes people come at us, right? Now, look, we're all in the people business. And I love when people say, well, I'm in the people business. And I think to myself, well, who is it? Really? At the end of the day, if I'm walking through the airport and somebody bumps into me and almost knocks me off my feet, not that I'm talking about my last trip last week, did they really pick me out of the 5,000 people walking through the airport intentionally, or were they all tied up in something and I happened to be the poor person that was standing there when they knocked me almost off my feet? Is that my issue? I could have reacted to it, but I think they were having some kind of problem. I'm staying in control. I'm not going to react to it. Go on, right? Because they did kind of turn around like, ooh, I thought you were a pole. And I thought, gee, that might mean I look younger and thinner. So I'm going to take that. Okay, I'm going to be happy with that. So think about it. When people are behaving a certain way, we cannot make them mad. We cannot make them upset. This goes for your clients. We cannot make them happy. We cannot make them satisfied. They choose their behavior. They choose their reaction, not us. So the minute you start to step back from that, you realize, like, I can do my best to stay out of it, stay neutral, and hear them, but I can't choose for them. That is one of the most powerful things you can do in conflict. Okay? Is recognize they're just reacting. They chose it, not me. So somebody can say to me, I think you're the most obnoxious person I ever met. Okay, I hear you. But I can't change that. They chose it. Just like when we say, you make me so mad, I don't think so. We chose to get mad. We could have just ignored it. We could have just chosen to check into it and say, tell me what I'm doing, but we are choosing a reaction. Nobody chooses it for us. Once you get on that kind of, let's say, path, you are in a power position as a leader. You're saying, you know what? I'll decide. You can choose, it's okay. But I'll also choose how I'm going to respond or not, right? Observing and listening versus evaluating. So here's what we also do in conflict that'll take the whole temper of the person and just accelerate it. When I say temper, I mean like they're mad, right? It's going to send them off the rails. Or we can temper it, which puts it on us to manage it. And that's to say, so when you're reacting to this, or you're acting really angry, or you're really being difficult, or you're really being very obnoxious, stop. There is no conversation. There is no negotiating. All right? You're being unreasonable. As soon as you put an evaluative word on anybody, do they want to talk to you about what's going on? or do they want to defend themselves against that word? Right? You are being very difficult to deal with, and I really don't like how obstinate you can be. You can be so hard-headed. Somebody else is over there going, I don't think he's being hard-headed. I actually think he's being very charming. So what happens? 5 of us go to a movie, right? We come out of the movie and one person goes, I hated that movie. The other person goes, I didn't understand the movie. The third person goes, I love the movie. The fourth person goes, well, it was interesting. Remember I talked earlier about filters? That's the same thing. So when we put an evaluative word on somebody, we have labeled them. They will not respond to anything other than, I'm going to defend that label. And we do it all the time. I have to go have a meeting with Ben. He's so difficult, right? It's over because I'm going to take that filter into that discussion. I have to go meet with this seller. And this seller is so unreasonable about the price of their home. Guess what? You just determined that they're going to be unreasonable about their home. So we say it, we carry it, we put a barrier. So you got to take the evaluative words out of here and out of the spoken conversation. And just say, you know what? If they want to hold on to it, I'll do the best I can. Right? Because can you move them, can you not move them? But what we do is we let people throw us off stride. All the time. People will say and do things to us, and what do? We feel it coming up, right? Here comes the energy, and we let them elicit a response from us. That's conflict. But the minute we do that, who's in control? Us or them? You got it. They're now getting us to behave a certain way. Yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a background in psychology and also as a teacher. And then some students come to the classroom wanting to act out because they prefer even negative attention.
Sure.
And some students act out at home because they don't want to act out in school. So a lot of dysfunction starts in the family, which at least 50% is, in this country is divorced. Yep. So it's almost a given that you're going to deal with difficult people because they came from difficult backgrounds. Okay. Some have worked through this, some have not. Plus, the United States is a melting pot. Yep. What's okay for you may not be okay from, like in the Latino cultures, you're not allowed to look in somebody's eye. It's from the Midwest. If you don't look in somebody's eye, you're not being respectful. So we have, like you said, different filters depending on what cultural, subcultural background we come from the same country, which is filled with so many different views and ideas because of all the immigration that has occurred over the 3 centuries this country has existed.
Agreed. But I do believe there is a leveler that goes across any culture. In fact, I just got back from visiting 6 countries. And that's called respect. Right? So I can still say, but I want to do what works the best for you. So if I can push out of my preference, my filter, and say, but tell me what's going to work the best for you. Notice I didn't say, tell me what you want. Right?
It's the word you use, right?
It's always the power of the words, right? But I'm also going to stay in my position of what I call leadership power, which says, but I'm very clear on, I want to hear what you say, and then let's negotiate. That's why I didn't say, tell me what you want. Once I know what's going to work best for you, then I can say, now let's figure out how we meet in the middle. How we can come closer together. We may never agree, but how do we get somewhere where we can both work with it? Yes, please.
Yeah. How do you deal with those feelings like, and like you were saying, yes, you do make your own reality. You go in there thinking that that's what it's going to be. You've decided that that's what's going to be. So, but the energy that you're talking about that it takes, like, okay, well, when they're almost escalating you and you take the time and energy to bring it back down and do that, and they get to just go off, why don't you feel something like, okay, I took the time and energy and restrained myself and I did these things, and then you just get to flare off and go off. I'm human just like you. I would love to do that, but I can't do that, and you do that. And I know it keeps you in the power position by not doing it, but the effort that you have to take, and then they just kind of, hey, you're not taking any effort whatsoever. I'm doing all this effort. And well, I guess that if you say that, then that is your reality as well. But
See, I like how you worked it, right? Because it doesn't take me any effort to stay in my position of power. Because I'm staying authentic, I'm staying centered. I can't tell you what to do, but I can remain very clear on who I am and who I want to be at my best. Right? And at my best, I'm not going to try to change you. I'm not going to move you. I'm going to care about you. But, and this may seem a little cold. I mean, I want to go on record. It could. But somebody asked me, that's why I put this up there, is this about you or the other person? And what's the significance in your life? So I retired 2004, 2005 from Mars. It's been a while. And somebody asked me, do you remember what this, do you remember that? And they bring up these like kind of more tense times, challenging times. And I go, you know what? I don't. I don't even think about those. I think about my friends. I think about when we hit milestones as a company and the great celebrations we had. I think about the owners and the great things they did for us and the training. And then what you realize is that's a mindset, isn't it? So in that kind of approach to life and the way you look at things, you realize like, hey, the more I stay centered, if you go out there and you want to run around the sidewalk 15 times yelling, it's okay. But I'm not going with you, because that's not what I believe a leader does. So the more and more you stay in that center, you realize like, you know, I wouldn't choose that. I'm choosing this. And you actually become more influential, more impactful, and you wind up attracting more people to you. It's amazing. So remember, I live the same life you do. I started out and organically grew this business. I had to go out and meet people and go, hi, I'm a coach and a business consultant. And they'd be like, okay. I'm like, geez, I gotta try that again. It's not about elevator speeches sometimes. It's about this energy. It's about this leadership. When you really start getting in your stride, it is this energy, this power that goes out to people and they go, I want to be around them. And I'm not saying I've got it down, by the way. Okay, I can handle rejection with the best of them. Remember, no is just a request for more information. We'll talk about that another time. Yes, you had a question or a comment.
And going back to I'm trying to understand what
Sure.
your point is, but I going back to my teaching experience, a teacher wrote 10 as an experience, wrote 10 formulas, mathematical formulas on the board, and she on purpose put one that was wrong. So all the kids like, yo, this number nine, that's totally wrong. Like, so she basically just said that you're focusing. You didn't see that there were 9 right. But you just focused on the one that was wrong. So it seems that where our focus is where our mental state is going to be. But we, for some reason, as in human nature, seem to focus more on the negative, like automatically versus the positive. So the mental shift, that shift has to occur. But how do you do that? Because, when you walk on the grass, you keep walking, the neural pathways on the same piece it's going to be a nice big road there, like the pioneers made a road. There's so much of that is going towards, like, how do you shift that towards positive thinking?
Okay, so I would add to yours. I think we start with nature and then we make choices. And when we make choices is when we choose our path.
we choose what we focus on, maybe.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
because we've been trained, like she said, as youngsters, to do that, we have to untrain our. If we did these kids, like she said, early on, then probably they wouldn't have that. They wouldn't have that programming how
Yes.
society has been doing. Whereas if they had this training early on, boy,
Well,
they'd be ahead of the game.
Yes,
there's a couple other angles, I think, too. If you're talking to a client and they are saying something that you know as a business professional is wrong, right? There's two things at play in your response, in your mind, in my mind at least.
okay,
Number one, you want to help them by self-educating them, but they don't necessarily want that,
correct,
whether you're right or not.
correct.
So it's so hard to bite your tongue,
Oh, gosh.
right? The other thing, and I try and not have this at all, but it can sneak in sometimes, is you have pride in the service that you provide. So there's a little bit of ego there as well.
Of course.
Right? You want to self-educate to help, but you have pride in what you learned and how you service people.
Sure.
And you want to make sure that they own some of that.
Sure.
Right? So I think what you're saying is correct, but I'm just like, it's a struggle, right? Because,
Of course.
and I've done what you're saying before, and I've got the deal. And I didn't have to self-educate. I didn't have to say, oh, by the way, but I catch myself doing that. If they ask a question, I'll want to pile on 5 other things. Oh, by the way, you said this, here's the answer, and here are some other things. They didn't want to hear all that stuff. They're like zoned out, right? So it's
So
your
who made the
approach is-
shift? Who made the shift to avoid the potential conflict? You or them?
I did.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing we're talking about. In conflict, when you stay in your leadership power, that's what I call it, you become more self-aware and you say, you know what? I can self-manage. I don't have to take them where I think they should go. All I need to do is hear where they are. And as we work together, it will come out naturally.
Yeah.
Okay? It will come out through the work. And once you give up a little bit of yourself to manage potential conflict, so you don't have to get into it, then you have the ability to remain influential. That's how leaders become more influential and impactful, just through that work. Because what we do is we give them what we want them to have, what we think they need, rather than saying, what can I do to be helpful? So even in conflict, when you feel it building up, if you can step back from you and refocus and say, okay, give me a second. Let me ask a question here. You will change the whole energy and the conflict will move, right? So you just gave a perfect example of repositioning. And it is a conscious effort that we have to make. Because what are we trained to do? As we grow up in any position, any of influence with anybody, we're taught to tell them what we know. All right, you give me something, this is what you need to do. Right? The joke when you're married, and I've been married over 40 years, is don't ever give your husband anything you're thinking about because they're going to tell you what you need to do. And I always joke with my husband, this is just a reflection, not a request for direction. Right? Because it's just human nature, right? That's the miss. Because who are we on? We're on ourselves and not them. So in conflict, when you go through these, what is it really saying to you? Get on their agenda, think about what you can do for them, and at the end of the day, why do we let people throw us off stride? Why do we let people influence our reaction, what we're going to do, how we're going to feel? Okay? So think about when you're in a meeting, right? And somebody came into a business, a meeting that I was in once, doesn't matter what company it was, and they said, you didn't deliver this report when you were supposed to. Now, that's the opening statement. So of course you're sitting there like, what? You know, you feel like one of the movies. You're talking to me, right? So first, you're thrown off stride immediately. I was. And I'm like, What report are you talking about? I'm defending myself. And you have an epiphany. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm defending myself about something I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't even know if I did or didn't do it, right? Why? Why? I should have stopped and said, could you tell me more about what you're talking about? Because I truly don't understand. No, I'm right in there, right? That's not true. I'm always on time with your report. Once again, I don't even know what report the person's talking about. I'm off stride.
Because your reputation is on the line.
Is it? Is it?
He's trying to make you
If
look
it's
bad in
real.
front of other people.
If it's real. But I'm taking my reputation. I'm helping him take my reputation right offline. So I don't want to stand up here, and for all the years I've been doing this in this Arizona coaching and consulting business for 10 years. And for everybody, every company I work with, I'm like, I will never stand here and tell you I've got it down. That I don't work on it every single day myself. Because when you think you've got it done, you shouldn't be doing the work. Right? It's always something we're working on. Because where did we start with this? We're only human. We have feelings. We want to do the right things. But when it comes to conflict, we're all in the people business. We just have to realize, like, it's not always a shot at us. It's their behavior. They may not be as far along their insight as we are, right? Self-awareness, awareness of others, and self-management is a journey that we all want to be on. We'll be able to manage or avoid conflict better, show up stronger, more empowered, more influential. People will be attracted to that. And at the end of the day, if you don't mind, this is my little Scotty dog. I like girls with beards, okay? Now, if you know anything about Scotties, they're very independent dogs, very independent breed. She doesn't wag her tail unless she decides she's going to wag her tail. So this vision came into my head as I was working with a lot of leaders who let everything get to them. I mean, they were off stride all the time. Any little slight, just everything that went on in the business, they were reacting to. And I gave him this picture. I said, see her? He said, she looks pretty stoic. I said, she don't let much get to her. I said, every day, when you find yourself getting ready to derail, to get off, thrown off stride, be the dog. Tilly decides when she's going to wag her tail. Nobody else does. Nobody else does. Because at the end of the day, you have two things that you own, and only two. I'm convinced of it. And that's your dignity and your self-respect. Why in the world would you give that away? Own it. Stay in your position of power and influence. And say, you know what? It's okay. If we see the world differently, it's okay. But hold tenaciously to your dignity and your self-respect. And stay on stride as much as you can. And you will minimize conflict. And if you're in it, you will manage it more effectively. Yes.
Now, I'm assuming, you know the word assume.
Yes, I do.
What it means, but
Yes, I do.
I'm assuming now, since you have been in corporate eons, which I have not, I've read somewhere that the higher up you go, like the cream rises to the top, that there's more narcissistic and almost sociopath type of personalities. Now, those are very difficult to deal with because they have no empathy, they feel nothing for the other person. And sometimes when you cut employees, cut whatever, basically you have to be the type of personality, otherwise you would never do that. So have you found that to be the case? These type of personalities are the ones that tend to rise to the top?
Well, since I run a business, I would say absolutely not. That's totally not true. Of course, there are always those, and there are some very high profile personalities that I would say that probably fit that mold. But companies are investing tremendous amounts of money in leadership because they realize that companies don't have ideas. People do. And that talent is a differentiator. So there are some companies that, yes, you will find, will look at people as just a cost. But there are many, many companies that I have worked with that I admire their culture around talent and, once again, looking at it as a competitive differentiator. And I know for a fact that there are significant investments being made in ensuring positions of influence in the organization, that they are going to a lot of leadership seminars, programs like at top universities, and they have executive coaches, and that they are doing a lot of work around that. So I believe that it's probably not true. There will always be some, right? And I think a lot of times they build their own companies because that meets their needs. But for a lot of the corporations, lots of investments, lots of consideration, a lot of work.
Because for me, for example, when I see bigger companies have under HR human capital, to me, capital has to do with like physical, like money and assets. And now we're trying to, whoever decided to make that term is seeing as human as being capital. And that's it. And we are much more than capital. That's what you say, what we bring to the table.
Correct.
But it's a very dangerous thin ice if companies and people who run them allow the people who work under them to be called human capital.
Right, but remember, there's your cycles. But there are cycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And assets, to me, I'm okay with assets because you invest in assets.
That's a physical thing. It's not a
No, it's not, but not, I spent 10 years in HR as part of my career. So my message to a lot of people today is you invest in physical assets, you invest in plants, right? You invest in products. People are assets also. You must invest in them as equally as you do the physical, because the physical don't turn on themselves. Now, AI says they will, okay? So if you don't get the financial people to look at assets equally across the board, they won't invest in them. So what most companies are worried about, who make things or who do rote things like a will, they're worried about AI. They're worried about artificial intelligence.
Well, that's what for me, what starting to run companies is an AI is a machine. Actually, no soul and no human feelings, nothing that differentiates. And if we allow AI to run us, then that's a
But here's the good
problem.
But here's the good news. A lot of millennials don't like artificial intelligence.
Oh, that's good.
That's very good, because they recognize, like, wait a minute, I don't mind if they do some things, but they are not as competent as me. And when I say because they're the next generation of leaders, right? And I'm like, you're absolutely right. There is something to be said for soul. Okay?
And we create
Of course.
those in the first place.
Of course.
Never be the same.
So just one last thought, if you could, I'd like to ask you all to do. So, when you get a chance, as you're not driving, but when you get somewhere, every time a word pops into your head, I'd like you to put 10 words down that describe you at your best. Because the other strategy, besides the picture of Tilly saying, I'm the dog, you are not going to wag me, I will determine my reaction, is to say, these are 10 words that describe me at my best. So for instance, my words are resilient, empathetic, collaborative, strategic. So, you don't have to have one, but family is one for me. Family is number one for me. So one of the things to think about, once again, is when you are in a conflict situation or any situation, you could say, you know what, I'm not showing up at my best. because at my best, this is what I look and feel like. It's also the most powerful thing I did to get clients. Because I am full. If I get this company that I'm talking to now, I will be at capacity. So when I look at those words, when I go in to talk to somebody, I go, show up at your best, Lynn. Show up at your best. And so you do. And I take those, they're attributes, right? They're words of me at my best. So I want them to see those, hear those, and feel those. So I literally take that piece of paper and I go, think. And it's actually allowed me to show up consistently and authentically. Authentic's not one of my words, by the way. So that I'm, always the same person. Just something to think about. So when you're meeting people, it just kind of helps. That's all about conflict. I hope it's something for you to think about, and it's been a little insightful.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Lynn.